So here's some soil profiles from the World Congress of Soil Science. The first soil profile they had there was cambisols, which are similar to the inceptisols in USDA classification, and they are characterized at the inception point, and they're commonly called the wastebasket of all soil orders because all they needed to had to be considered an inceptinol is like changing color of the soil or something to show that structure is forming within the soil and that there's horizonation beginning to occur. So they can be any soil texture and formed from any parent material, and they're frequently at active landscapes or where there's a lot of material that is being accumulated at a place or deposited or being lost. So, and they have high agricultural productivity, certain ones, because they can be high in fertility or they can be low in fertility depending upon what the material is that they're formed from. And they're a very common soil throughout the world, though, and in Brazil. The next soil order they had there were latisols, which is Brazilian classification, ferrosols, or oxasols in USDA taxonomy. And these are like the end weathering sequence of soils and are very highly weathered soils, which are generally very old. And they usually are of low fertility compared to soils such as the Corn Belt soils in the U.S., but they still can be agriculturally productive if they're managed right. They're usually high in resistant materials and kaolinite and iron and aluminum oxides, and the reddish color in them is due to the iron oxides that are present in the soil. And here's the landscape like what they're occurring at. And as you can see in the profiles, the horizons are very hard to differentiate. And a lot of times the entire horizon will be very high in clay, and they have to have an oxic horizon to be considered oxisol, which is an accumulation of the highly resistant materials, which I just said, which is quartz and iron and aluminum oxides. And here's the profiles, and all you can really see is there's the A horizon, and there's the BO horizon, and there's just kind of a reddish C horizon. And some of these soil profiles will be weathered like meters and meters deep down into the soil. It'll all be this reddish material. And they're a very highly developed soil profile, and they're common in the rainforest regions. Although some of these can be in like a grassland area too, which may be due to management too. So the next soil order they had in the Brazilian classification is argisols, which are similar to alpha sols or altisols in the U.S. soil classification. And the difference between alpha sols and altisols is the alpha sols have high amounts of calcium and sodium and magnesium and potassium as exchangeable cations, which are bound to the clays, and a higher pH generally. And altisols generally have more aluminum and and exchangeable iron bound to the cation exchange sites and generally have a lower pH, like less than 6. So the alpha sols are can be very highly productive soils, and many of them are very highly productive soils in the U.S. and in Brazil. And a lot of the cereal grains are growing on them, although they're originally formed underneath the forest. And the and these soils are very commonly found in many of the states of the U.S. From the west coast to the east coast, alpha sols would be found, and a lot of altisols are found in the southeastern U.S. So these soils, in order to be classified as them, need to have a certain percentage increase in clay in the BT horizon, or which is a B horizon, which is a subsurface horizon, and the top horizon beneath the organic matter on top, which is the O, and the next horizon down is the A, and there's sometimes a E horizon, which you can sort of see in this profile is where the would be platy structure, and then below that would be the BT horizon where clay is accumulating in the BT from the E and A. So there's alluviation and illuviation occurring in alpha sol soil orders and altisols. So there has to be a certain percentage increase for it to be considered an alpha sol or an altisol, and there has to be chemical criteria to diagnose this type of soil order. And there can be alpha sols which are as low as like 10 or 15% clay, such as in parts of central Wisconsin and northwest Wisconsin, and there can be alpha sols which have 60% or more clay and altisols. Like this last profile is very sandy in the surface horizon, and then you can very distinctly see the E horizon and the argillic horizon below the E horizon in this profile. Whereas the first two profiles had a higher clay percentage in the A horizon. This soil would likely not be the most agriculturally productive soil, this last one. And the A would have low water holding capacity. But this is a very productive soil order, and a lot of agriculture is going on. The last soil order they have here is spodosols, which are one of the most beautiful soil profiles. They are generally formed underneath acidic forest, generally conifer forest, and they're frequently formed where sand is being deposited along the beach of the ocean, or a lot of them in the U.S. are formed anywhere in northern New England and northern Michigan and Wisconsin and Ontario, where there's coarse glacial till like sand, which is very high in sand, and they've grown in evergreen forest. And there's lots of these spodosols in Florida where there is quartz silica sand, essentially, with the cypress swamps growing on top of it where the soil order has formed. And as it says here, it's in quartz-rich and humid climate, as in the areas I said. And their potential for agriculture is kind of low, and they're low, don't retain very many nutrients, and are very poor at retaining water, and they're generally very sandy. So that's why a lot of the regions with these soils, unless they've had irrigation put on them, is used for forest. And as you can see, there's the A horizon, there is a relatively weak E horizon, and then there's the BS horizon. Then below it is just almost all pure quartz sand, which is really white. So here's some soil profiles I have, and I have another video of soil profiles, which are just like horizonated profiles I was going to show. I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll leave the last soil video for a while.